Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Spy Family, Season 3.
Yep, Spy Family Season 3, Episode 10. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the dojo, and I don't know if I want to talk about the stuff that me and Age were discussing about Spy Family earlier in this episode. I'm probably going to save it for the wrap-up, but something came up about this show, and it's moderately aggravating to me. And this comes down to the stuff that we talked about, people being tourists for certain things. And that there was something I was going to bring up in our Has-Been video that we haven't done yet because of madness. But I'll save it for the end of the season. But it's something that this show in particular and shows like this, let's just say that the pacing of the show is the way it is for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay? And we'll talk about it more, but yeah, it's not something I want to get into right now because this could turn into like a half-hour rant, and I'm not going to do that in our intro. But yes, we're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and I'm Ryu, that's Age. But yeah, it's one of those things where some of the stuff that's come out about this stuff, and you see it in your feed, and it's just all over the place, and I question whether people are trolling, but then you look at some more of their content and they're being like absolutely serious, and it's just like just full Picard facepalm. You know what I mean? It drives me nuts. And it's just aggravating to me personally. And it should aggravate more people, honestly, from an objective standpoint. This kind of crap needs to just stop. But there are far greater problems in the world that need to stop before this kind of crap stops. So let's fix the actual major problems first. But I digress. That's a whole other problem. But as for Spy Family, last week we had the whole, Desmond situation where, look at her. She's got kanji all over the place. It's really freaking weird. And we talked about the possible implications of that. So if you're looking for story, that's something pretty interesting going on right there to, theorize and discuss. So get on that. Theorize about that for a while. But as it stands, looks like we're going back to the multiple skits in an episode thing. This episode has 3 things. Austin's Troubles, a normal mixer, and moon landing. We got 3 of them. So, yeah. And, well, we were making fun of Guida's thing, and or not making fun of it, but making light of Guida's thing in Gachiakudo, only going to level 3 this week, and for Kaiju thing. And the next episode of Spy Family is called Extreme Level 3 Situation. So the fact that everything we do continues to be, just combined and connected by a T, it's out of control, and it needs to stop. It just keeps happening.
Guida gigantifies to level 3. Freaking Sui gigantifies to about the same size as level 3, and then next week it's gonna be the extreme level 3 situation.
I doubt they're gonna have a kaiju in Spy Family, but I'm just saying, just the terminology being the same is ridiculous. So either way, whatever is going to continue going on here, we talked about the pacing thing, and I'll just talk about that at the end of the season, because we'll just have to see what comes of the last couple episodes here, because we got 3 episodes left, including this one, obviously. So there's still plenty of stuff that they could get to for the story and stuff like that. But in short, I will say the main story of this is a slow burn for a reason, and we'll talk about it at the season. So we'll just leave it at that. That being said, we're going to get going here. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, as always, on YouTube. See you on the other side for the discussion and review. And if you're looking for either one of those videos as you're watching, they're in the respective places. The links are where they need to be. So click on the stuff and acquire the content that you are looking for. So let's push some buttons and get going here. So here goes some. Well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. This episode tackled a couple very serious sides of relationships. Well, yeah, a couple. There are multiple other parts of relationships, but yeah, these are really the discussions I thought I'd have, and supposed to be like happy fun time for us. But I guess I have to get very real for a minute here. Real bummer. I hate getting real, but you have to do that from time to time, even in your leisure time, I guess. But so let's start with this one. We'll just tackle the problems one at a time. I think they were handled very well for what they were, and they showcased problems that I've seen in some of my friends and stuff like that, and other have relationships and stuff like that. So in the case of this guy, the bus jacking incident exacerbated and brought to light a more underlying problem with the relationship, and it seems like, based on everything that Fiona found out and stuff like that, and I mentioned the whole, like, I just kind of off in the reaction, I kind of like off-puttingly said, oh, it sounds like he needs to divorce her or whatever. That was just me being an asshole. In the case of like getting both sides of the story and stuff like that, it seems like both parties in their marriage especially have something reasonably to gripe about. One's not doing this, the other's not doing that, whatever. And it all comes down to communication. We talked about that at the end of the reaction there. At the end of the day, communication is key in any kind of relationship, especially in a marriage. And in their case, it's one of those things where if both parties are doing something that is like detrimental to the relationship, from like even just like a average everyday thing, like like leaving your socks around or not doing this thing or whatever, it can kind of grate on the other party. You know what I mean? And it's just like the little things, stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it comes down to communication, and that's what's most important in this situation. But I see it a lot especially in men that are he's like the poster child for men like this that are terrified of losing their wife for whatever reason. You can never get a straight answer out of that. You know what I mean? There are any myriad of reasons why anybody is afraid to lose a relationship, and that's their own deal. But it all stems from the fear of communicating with the other party. That's what happened here. So if he was able to just communicate with his wife at all, and we saw there at the end after Lloyd's counseling and stuff like that, that they were able to fix the minor annoyances in the relationship, and things were getting slightly better, that kind of thing, which is good. And it doesn't matter. You see this on both sides of the coin. It's not always the man that has this problem. Woman, if you're in a relationship, guy and guy, girl and girl, whatever, what have you, it doesn't matter. Whatever party it is, you just have to be able to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like in this case, if it's just something as like mundane as, oh, your husband leaves his socks around, which to me, I can't fathom. If I have socks on, they're either on my feet, or if they need to be washed, they're in my hamper. I can't fathom leaving my socks lying around. That would drive me nuts personally. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's not a problem that I would personally have, but I know a lot of people are like, messy and stuff like that. Everybody's different. That is what, just personality quirks, whatever. But I see it a lot in just, and it's usually stereotyped to men like this who are timid, I guess is the best way to put it. And they're afraid of their wives, of losing them, and then just being able to talk to them. And then it's just one of those things where, let's say, for the sake of argument, that for the most part, this party, for him, let's just call it party A, because once again, it's not always the guy that's the problem. It's not always the woman that's the problem. There could be fault on both sides. But let's say that in the case of party A, has very little to do with the problem in the marriage, and party B is like super controlling, has all the like stereotypical bad things with it. The timid party is usually the one that suffers the most, because the controlling party is the one that is causing the majority of the problems and is the puppeteer and keeps control of whatever's going on. And in the case of that, I always look at it, and from an outside perspective, like I've had some friends who've been in a relationship with like this, and I've seen stuff where like, we had a project to do, whatever, and we knew we were going to be working on like our cars or something for that like afternoon or whatever. And my buddy would come over, we start working on our cars, and anytime that would happen, like it would happen every couple months where like we'd have time to do it, or he'd come over to our place and help with a couple things like yard work or stuff like that and whatnot. And within like an hour of him being here, his wife was already like calling to ask, like, when are you going to be home? It's like, you're kidding, right? Like, if that were me, I'd be like, listen, I'm going to go do this thing for today. I'll be back at some point later, not an hour from now. You know what I mean? And those are the kind of things that drive me nuts, is those kind of relationships where, like, the wife or the husband, doesn't matter which side it is, because it happens on both sides, that it's just like, when are you going to be home? It's like, I left like 20 minutes ago. You cannot be serious. Those kinds of things are the things that kind of drive me nuts. And that's how it leads to stuff like this, where if that were me, and I've been in situations like this where I'm just like, you're kidding, right? You know, and I look at it and go, I'm not putting up with this. And I'm surprised so many people put up with the grief and neglect and just madness, as opposed to just bailing. You know what I mean? I think more people need to be secure with being, you know, alone before they're like in a relationship, because then they get like dependent and or codependent, which is another really terrible thing in a relationship kind of deal. That
a lot of people just have a really big issue with not being in a relationship. Like, they always feel like they need to be in a relationship, and that if they're ever out of a relationship, that they've failed in some way.
Right. And from an objective standpoint, I don't think that's the case. You're already exhibiting like that negative trait of needing that kind of thing. And I think you need to be okay with like being by yourself. You know what I mean? And I've had situations where it's just like, you know, in a relationship or whatever, and then it's just like this kind of thing happens and somebody gets too controlling, and I just look at him and go, I've been by myself for a long time. I can do it again. It's not a big deal. A relationship is supposed to be a benefit to both parties, not a negative. You know what I mean? And to me, when I look at it, I just go, okay. You know what I mean? There's the door. I'll be fine. You know, you have brought nothing but, you know, negativity to this situation. So why would I continue this? Just get out of my business. You know what I mean? And I personally think that's the objective way to correctly be about any situation like this. If a relationship is bringing negative aspects to your life only and nothing positive, there is zero reason to continue said relationship just because you're afraid of not being in a relationship. That's like doubling your negative. That's insane to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, people that are just afraid of no longer being in a relationship need to deal with that. But also, just because things are going negative, like, you still should try to figure out why they're going negative and see if there's any way to resolve it. Like in this case, in the show here, it was just a matter of he himself wasn't really putting anything forth in the relationship, and the wife was just getting progressively more and more done with him as a result of it.
Right. And again, it's just one of those things. Stereotypically, it's the woman in the relationship that, you know, just doesn't tell the husband or the guy what the issue is. And it's not always that, but it's the majority of the time that. And that's why it's a stereotype. Just stating a fact here, that's how it is.
Yeah, which basically was what this situation was. It was just the wife wasn't communicating that she was upset with him outside of just berating him.
Yeah, it's just like
she wasn't telling him what the problem was. She was just being aggressive and venting her frustrations at him.
Right, which again, at the end of the day, if you're on that side of it, if you have a problem with somebody, especially if you're in a marriage with them, you're like, hey, stop leaving your socks around pissing me off. That's it, not just be pissed off. Just say it. It's really not a big deal. That could solve the whole situation, or whatever it is. Hey, stop putting salt on my eggs. Whatever it is. Hey, stop, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Just tell your partner what the freaking problem is. Again, this all circles back around to just communication is key. Okay? And that's the thing that drives me nuts about any of these situations. You know what I mean? And this was situation 1. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible, because I could go on about this for like an hour, because it drives me nuts that people allow themselves to get into these situations when it's really not that difficult. Just communicate and say what it is. And if it's a deal breaker, then so be it. You know what I mean? Then you can just move on with your day, like, you know, whatever it is. Like, you know, trying to convince somebody to give up a hobby that they love. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, then we're not going to work out. Move on with your life. That's it. So
gross. You crossplay?
I know, right? I can't believe that. So it's just one of those things. Communicate with your partner, talk about stuff, key to end a relationship. That simple. Full stop. So then as we moved on to the next thing, another thing for relationships is stereotypical girl talk. This isn't just only a woman thing. This can happen with guy friends or whatever it is. You know what I mean? This can happen on both sides of the spectrum. But traditionally speaking, you see a lot of like Reddit stories and stuff like that where the friend group, whatever side it's on, it doesn't matter. It happens on both sides. Generally speaking, most stories that come out of these situations are the girl talk and it's on the female side. But it doesn't matter. It happens on both sides. But let's just say for the sake of argument, we're going to do the female perspective. So in this case, the rest of your coworkers here are just kind of joking around doing the girl talk stuff and stuff like that. But the whole like trying to undermine a marriage and say like, well, you have to have something you don't like about your husband or what they don't, you know what I mean? And just kind of like making a relationship more difficult by pointing out flaws that your coworker's husband has or your friend's husband has, whatever it is, can lead to resentment in the actual relationship. You know what I mean? And it's just like something that's very minor, like what Yor was talking about with like the whole eggs thing. Something unbelievably minor could lead to, you know, this, that, or the other thing of becoming major. You know what I mean? And the girl talk literally could lead to divorce because they've convinced you that your husband and or your wife, whatever direction it's going, is a total scumbag and useless and horrible, and you shouldn't be with them because of this, because they're venting their frustrations with their own relationship and trying to project it onto you, which is just like, well, it sounds like that's a you problem. I don't have this problem, so stop trying to make it seem like my husband or wife is a terrible person for not salting my eggs.
Yeah, it could very well just lead to Yor assassinating Lloyd.
Right. And that was like the completely ridiculous end of the spectrum as what they were doing for this for the comedic factor. But this is a very real problem, is just like you can vent your frustrations to your friends about your partner or whatever and that kind of thing. It's just like, yeah, you know, this kind of thing happens. She doesn't do this or he doesn't do this, whatever, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if your relationship is reasonably good and solid across the board and you have a couple minor gripes, it's okay. Then once again, circle back around to the previous conversation and just talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get third-party opinions from people who aren't a part of your marriage. This friend group here and or coworker group, whatever it is, they don't live with you. They don't see every aspect of your relationship. You know what I mean? They don't have the full story, so their opinion matters so much less. Okay?
Yeah, and I mean, in this particular situation, from their perspective, they didn't even know she was married for a full year.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is a lie. She wasn't actually married for that year. But from their perspective, like, she was so closed off that they didn't even know about her marriage for that year. First year of it.
Yeah. So, once again, this whole sequence was hilarious for what it was from the show side. You know, Yor going full Yor. We know she can't hold her liquor, that kind of thing. And just her being whatever. And we saw, like, at the end of it, it's like, yeah, that was fun. We should do that again. But again, a lot of discussions that are supposed to be lighthearted and just venting like minor frustrations, like the Crunchyroll player being trash right on cue as I'm in mid-sentence, so I could just segue that in. Did you guys see that? But it's just one of those things where a lot of harmless girl talk or whatever, what have you, friend talk, can lead to very serious problems in the actual marriage or relationship, whatever it is, because the person like Yor could take it in a way it's like, oh, they're right. I'll look at all these things that are wrong with my relationship when it's just the eggs. You know what I mean? In her case.
Yeah, like in this case, freaking, you're so obsessed with being normal that realizing just how like well their family dynamic is actually working is abnormal caused her to start having freaking imposter syndrome and wanting to massively course correct in the other direction.
Right. So this is another one of those things that just like drives me nuts. And you see, like, again, and a lot of people think like, you know, oh, that's just a Reddit story, or that's just like an AI made up thing. And it's just like, I've seen it. I've seen this kind of crap firsthand. And that's just like my own personal, very small circle of, you know, a couple dozen people, you know, in my life. And I've seen it multiple times in several relationships where crap like this ends up in a divorce. Straight up.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And it's like, that crap stuff doesn't happen. It absolutely does. Several 100 million people in just America alone. It happens all the time. You know what I mean? Where do you think the inspiration for those stupid AI stories comes from? Because it actually happened. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with like the whole like why they have to put like for anybody who wonders why this is a thing. On a hot beverage, they have these little warning labels. Like if somebody hands you a coffee, it's like, hey, this thing is scalding. It can burn you, give you 3rd-degree burns. If you dump it on yourself or spill it. You want to know why that's there? Because of the McDonald's lawsuit about 20 years ago, where some person spilled a hot McDonald's coffee and sued McDonald's because they didn't tell them a hot coffee was hot and could burn them.
Yeah.
As stupid as that sounds, that's exactly why there's those warning labels now, because a person was able to sue McDonald's because of that, because they didn't have a warning label for something that's obvious. You know, professor, fire, hot, full Futurama. Okay? You know, if you stick your hand, you know, your hand in a moving blender, yeah, you're gonna serrate your hand. No kidding. You know what I mean? But that's why there's a lot of very stupid warnings on certain products that are like, why do they have that? Yeah, well, I understand that saw's sharp. Why are they putting that there? Well, legal reasons. People will sue you for the stupidest crap. So, either way, these kind of situations are a major point of just annoyance for me, because for a reasonably savvy adult human being, these things should not happen. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, you know, what you'd call like tourists or stupid, or just like have like sub-average intelligence or what have you. That's always going to be a thing, what have you. But when you look at the greater whole, and when like we're moving forward as, you know, the human race and stuff like this, and you see, you learn by watching situations like that and go, yeah, let's not do that. You know, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. Personalized relationships like this are history, and you can learn from them so you don't repeat somebody else's mistakes. You know what I mean? Yep. So, come on. We have to be better. You know, full Kratos. Don't be sorry, father. Be better. You know, coming full circle with Atreus learning from Kratos. Don't be sorry. Be better. It's a very powerful statement. So, at the end of the day, communication is key. Talk it out, and don't let girl talk or friend talk or coworker talk allow you to drive a wedge in your relationship because they know like 3% of your relationship. Unless they're living with you and see 100% of your interactions with your partner, they know nothing. You know what I mean? So, it's just one of those things. If you only tell them the story, and this is another thing that can go hand in hand with what Age and I do here, we like to highlight the good things about shows, because it's super easy to complain and bitch about something like, say, One Punch Man and its failings. That's the big hot button thing, is to just complain about stuff because it's more fun to complain about stuff. I dislike that. I'm obviously about pointing out things that have flaws and, you know, the negative aspects of things and stuff like that, but I'm never going to glorify them in a way that a lot of other reactors do, because we shouldn't be glorifying negativity. We should be glorifying the positive aspects of things and not wanting things to fail, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when it comes to that, you have to look at it, and when you only hear the negative aspects of a relationship, it's like, well, you only talk about the negative things. It's like, you really need to talk about the positive things. Like, well, while they do that, you know, he always does the things that Yor had in her like flashback of Lloyd. You know, look at all the things that Lloyd does do for her that are, you know, very good things as a husband and partner and that kind of thing. And we need to talk more about the positive aspects of anything in our lives, what have you, so that there's more positivity and far less negativity, because negativity is far more glorified and easy, and it's ridiculous, you know. And that's why we like to talk about more positive aspects of everything here, because there's so much negativity out there, and the positive aspects of most things are not done. When you see a review of, like, say, a product, most of the time you only see the negative reviews, and then you just have to assume that, you know, if somebody doesn't leave a review, that it's positive, I guess. But at the end of the day, most people only leave negative reviews and won't put in just like, hey, I bought this blender like 2 years ago. It's had no problems. It's been awesome. I love it. Most people aren't going to do a review like that. Most people are going to do the review of, hey, I bought this blender. I plugged it in and it exploded and it's terrible. And I bought 3 more of them. And they've all done the same thing. You're more likely to write a negative review than a positive.
Yeah. It's just in general, like the mindset of you're more likely to freaking get on your soapbox about something that you dislike than something that you do like, just because if you like it, you tend to take it for granted.
Yep. So, very, very annoying topics for me, honestly. But very real and something that deserves to be talked about for what it is. And I think the show kind of like nailed it for the situations that were occurring here. And Lloyd did his best to, you know, handle a situation with that teacher to get him to owe him a favor, that kind of situation. That was the whole backdrop of that.
Yeah.
Having somebody is in position as that teacher, you know, a 30-year veteran of Eden College owing him a favor is a pretty big deal. Progressing the story, but yeah. So either way, the word of the day, or the phrase of this day, is communication is key. Talk with your partners about your worries, your troubles, your grievances, that kind of thing. Relationships will probably be for it. So there you have it. There's my concussion PSA of this week. Don't sleep with a concussion, people. It's a bad idea. So that's all I got for this one. It was a good episode for what it was. And then we had the moon landing hilarity, which was hilarious. And we had Stonewall Damien. It's funny. So congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, we finally had some form of connection between Anya and one of Damien's friends, instead of them just being Crab and Goyle.
Right. So you gotta appreciate that, the comedy. That's always great, that kind of thing. So keep it going for keeping it going. But I hope I don't have to do another one of these for a while, because it's really friggin' annoying to me. But I'm not above doing it because it needs to be talked about, and so I will always suck it up and be the bigger person and discuss these kinds of topics, because I think people need to hear it. Absolutely. So, you got anything else, Age?
No, really, this episode was basically just the freaking relationship shenanigans, and then, like I said, the most important thing that really came out of this second skit here was just that Anya does have some form of freaking connection with one of Damien's friends over something.
Right.
And that apparently the space race is between East and West Germany instead of, you know, Russia and the US in this universe.
Yeah, right. No problem. So hopefully whatever 7 of this place doesn't end up like the Apollo. Well, no, was it the Apollo 11 that exploded, or was it the 7 that exploded? It was the 7 or the 11, and not the convenience store.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was. So hopefully it doesn't end up like whichever Apollo exploded, because that was obviously terrible. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond if you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. So Spy Family, Season 3, Episode 10. So have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.